George Pickens and Kyle Pitts are the first two to get slapped with the franchise tag. Plus, Javonte Williams gets an extension with the Cowboys before he can hit the free market. We discuss the latest NFL news during Combine Week on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today, we're going to talk about a bunch of news that's been coming out this week and news that we want to hear to come out of this week with the NFL Combine happening and all of the coaches and GMs together. There's normally rumors or reports that we start to get out of the NFL, but we already have some information that came out this week. George Pickens and Kyle Pitts will be franchise tagged. Pickens by the Cowboys, Pitts by the Falcons. Now, it doesn't mean they can't be traded, but for now, we should expect them to be with those teams next year. And then Javonte Williams gets a 3-year, $24 million deal, and he will be now the starting running back for the Cowboys for the second straight year after a really great 2025 season. Let's start with Pickens here. Let's say he signs his tag or he gets the extension, whatever, and he's officially with the Cowboys. His current cost is wide receiver 11 in consensus rankings and half PPR. Is that a fair price or too low? Or do you think it's too high? He was a wide receiver 6 last year in average scoring, and he's only 24 years old. He will be 25 soon here, but a lot of promise for him moving forward.
Yeah, he's an excellent receiver. We knew this coming out of Georgia, that if he stayed healthy, he had some big play potential, and if he got his head on straight and was in a position to succeed. Look, the Steelers, he did his best, but that may be in a personality conflict. I think the Cowboys just let him be a little bit and say we needed him with CeeDee Lamb to make big plays, and he just got unleashed a little bit. So it's hard to duplicate that year. It was so good with the downfield receiving and the average per catch that it's really hard for any receiver to do that for a second straight season. That said, he's a big play guy. He's someone who is also big enough to catch balls in the red zone. So, and he's evolving. He's still growing as a receiver. As you mentioned, his age, he hasn't hit his prime yet. And CeeDee Lamb, look, he's slowly creeping up there. He's had some injury attrition. He's not an old guy by any means, but CeeDee Lamb is not that dynamic young receiver the way he was, so they need a number 2 that's legitimate here. We also know the Cowboys still have a lot of work to do to fix their defense. They're still going to throw a ton. There isn't any change here. Brian Schottenheimer is going to really push the ball downfield to Pickens playing off the running game with Javonte Williams. So I think those elements are also hand in hand. So if you get Javonte Williams locked up, there's a good chance he'll go out and do the same for Pickens and keep those guys intact for Dak Prescott. So we'll see how it is. I think he is definitely in the wide receiver 1 conversation. That's in the top 12 in all formats. I just think that's about fair. I don't think I would drop him. I don't think I would put him in the top 5 or 6, but I think that's a very fair ranking for him. And look, it's not fluky. I'll say that. He's a big dude. He has a lot of talent, oozes talent, and he's just an all-around number 1 profile type guy. So keep going with him. Just don't overdraft him. Just be careful. He's still in the top 12 for me, but I'm not going to go, hey, is he in the consideration for the top wide receiver on the board? Not quite yet.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? Because all the guys going ahead of him are their team's true wide receiver 1. And we would expect CeeDee Lamb to continue to be that for Dallas. But Pickens still, there's enough room for both of them to thrive as top 12 guys, just like they did this past year. But he is going to still go ahead of guys like Chris Olave and A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson, guys that are going to be wide receiver 1s for their team. But it won't be shocking if he outproduces them. He already showed he could do that this year. Now, talking about Javonte Williams getting that contract with the Cowboys, his ranking is way too low. He's at running back 22 right now in consensus rankings. Now, maybe it'll increase now that he gets this contract and as we go through the summer, but he's lower than guys like Cam Scatterbo and RJ Harvey and Trey Henderson. Seems very, very low. Dynasty could be messing with these rankings a little bit, but Javonte Williams was a running back 12 and average scoring last year at 14.1 points per game. And towards the end of the year, it fell off a little bit, but he was doing so well for most of the season. Very consistent, scored a lot of touchdowns, 13 touchdowns, but he's going to get those opportunities again. Like the Cowboys are going to score points. He's going to be the main guy, get all the work. And if the Cowboys defense could just be a little bit better, that's even going to offer Javonte Williams more opportunities to run the ball. And you would expect them to be trying to build up that defense after a pitiful last couple seasons on that side of the ball. So I think Javonte Williams might be a really nice value come 2026 drafts.
Yeah, this is going to be very easy for the Cowboys backfield this year. Javonte Williams is a starter. Get a premium handcuff and Jaylen Blue. I mean, he showed you what he could do when he was healthy there with Javonte out of action late in the season. So you have a pretty easy situation. Javonte Williams is going to touch the ball out. You don't pay a running back that much, especially Jerry Jones, going back to Ezekiel Elliott days, right? Paying a running back of that caliber. And look, we've known this about his talent as well, going back to North Carolina. When he went with the Broncos, we were so excited. Then he had the knee injury, derailed him. It took a few years because it was a big-time knee injury. Same thing with Breece Hall, who may get tagged now as a free agent, but they kind of went through it at the same time. Still a young running back in his prime. Like, yeah, I can see Dynasty maybe bringing him down, but he's still in the wheelhouse right now. I think he has 3 or 4 good years left, and that's what that contract is for here, to push him there as the feature back for the Cowboys. It's a really good position to be in. The high-scoring offense. We know it's going to have Pickens back with Lamb, and we know the tight end situation is good. We have Dak Prescott, like Schottenheimer. There's no changes here that you would say, hey, why should we downgrade this situation at all? I mean, Javonte Williams is fully healthy. You don't even need to worry about that anymore either. So I'm really excited about what he can do. And he should not be going behind committee backs because his volume said he was a feature back. And look, Jaylen Blue is going to get more opportunities because he wasn't healthy for much of his rookie year. But he's not going to cut into Williams because they don't pay Williams unless they plan to use him in that key role.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. Moving on to Kyle Pitts. I don't love his current cost at tight end 8. Now, it's not like the guys going behind him are these home run hits where I feel much better about taking them over Kyle Pitts. It's just I don't want to buy into Kyle Pitts' big year last season because all of his big games basically came with Kirk Cousins, who will be released by the Falcons at the start of this new year. So it's back to Michael Penix. And he averaged 6.6 fantasy points per game with Michael Penix this year. That was exactly what he was averaging the 3 years prior when we were so disappointed in him. It was 6.2, 6.5, 6.4. And then this last year, it goes up to 9.8, but it's because he was so good with Kirk Cousins, averaging 10.7 points per game in that time with Kirk Cousins as a starter. 4 of the 5 touchdowns that he caught were from Kirk Cousins. We know that's been a huge issue for him in receiving touchdowns throughout his career. So I'm happy that maybe he'll get a new contract and he gets at least that franchise tag money. I'm happy for the player, and I think the Falcons could use him and they'll be better for it. But in terms of fantasy, I will likely be staying away.
Yeah, the one thing that could bounce up his cost, Michelle, that could kind of counteract that a little bit. Yeah, the quarterback situation a little concerning here. Like, are they fully committed to Michael Penix in this new offense? But the new offense was also very tight end friendly. We know that. Kevin Stefanski, Tommy Reese. We had David Njoku be a solid starter. Then David Njoku faded. He got hurt. And Harold Fannin Jr. broke out as a rookie. And you'd say some of the skill set that Fannin has, Pitts has, right? He's the OG with the athleticism, ability to play tight end like a wide receiver. Like, Pitts should be a featured player in this offense. And they need to get him the ball as much as possible when it's not Drake London. Look, and it's also not very crowded either, right? I mean, there's not a lot of receivers you can rely upon on this team. It really comes down to London, Pitts, Bijan Robinson out of the backfield, and then random wide receivers, right? So he's always going to be high in the pecking order. they're used to this in Cleveland, having no receivers and tight end being your best target. So nothing new for Stefanski and Reese. So I think this is good for him to bounce, but it really comes down to, you're right, the chemistry with Penix. Can that improve here? Do they bring in someone else from the outside who knows this offense? Look, I don't know who they would do that with because they have Joe Flacco. No, I don't think they're going to go and bring him in to start. I mean, it could be okay because Flacco throws the tight end a lot, but if it's Penix, we're going to slide him down a little bit, but maybe he rebounds a little bit because of the offensive scheme being tailored to the tight end.
Yeah. And, Kevin Stefanski goes to Atlanta and now again is probably stuck with an organization that does not have a very good quarterback to lean on. We are going to talk about Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones and the Colts have been in discussions for a multi-year deal. That would be huge for guys like Tyler Warren and Michael Pittman and even Jonathan Taylor. We'll get to that and more right after a quick break. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it for you. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150. All in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Before we continue talking about all the latest NFL news, I want to remind everybody you're already here with us every day. So now it's time to take it up a level and go ad free. You get our show Monday through Friday, no interruptions. You get to join the Everydayer Club. And you, like I said, no ads. You get members only Discord access and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's talk about Daniel Jones and if he were to get this multi-year deal from the Colts. I think it makes, I know it's risky, right? Because Daniel Jones is coming off the Achilles tear. We didn't even get to see if he was going to fall apart and become Daniel Jones again at the end of the year. It kind of seemed like it was a little bit headed that way, even though he looked pretty good overall. But for fantasy, I think we want this because there's not really many other options out there, right? It's not like they can go sign someone that we know is definitely better than Daniel Jones. So, I mean, all of these guys' production dropped tremendously without Jones there. Tyler Warren was a wide receiver 6 with Jones from weeks 1 through 13, averaging 10.7 points per game. That dropped down to 4.5 points per game from weeks 14 through 18. Michael Pittman was a wide receiver 16 on average from weeks 1 through 13 with Jones. That dropped down to just 5.3 points per game and 0 touchdowns from weeks 14 through 18. And then Jonathan Taylor was destroying it with Daniel Jones there. Weeks 1 through 13, he was averaging 23.3 points per game in half PPR. That was the running back one over that span. That dropped all the way down to 11.8. That's a 12-point difference from weeks 14 through 18. And, they needed Daniel Jones there because with Rivers or who's the other guy I'm missing right now?
Riley Leonard had to start.
Yes, Riley Leonard.
He's back. So.
Yeah, it wasn't working. So Daniel Jones would help us feel much better about all of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely dropped off because of that. I mean, Phillip Rivers didn't have much left. We know that. And he didn't get the ball into the hands of the playmakers. And Riley Leonard was figuring it out, right? He was being chased and under pressure and trying to just settle and play some decent football. But they do like Leonard, by the way, as a backup. So that's good for Jones that they have a good situation there. But when you look at it, Alec Pierce is probably out the door here as a free agent. I mean, every team that needs a downfield field stretcher, speedy guy is linked to Alec Pierce at this point in free agency. I think the Colts let him walk. I think he's going to be expensive, especially when you have Tyler Warren and you've invested in Michael Pittman, who was a cut candidate, but maybe he would be a cut candidate if they want to try to keep Pierce. So that's something to watch here. But that would also increase the values of both these guys because there was some chemistry between Jones and Pierce as a deep threat. So those guys could really get bumped up if Pierce leaves with Daniel Jones. So that's going to be all good things for those two receivers. And I expect them to bring back Jones. The problem is there's not a lot of good quarterback options this offseason.
Yep.
When you talk about that in the draft other than Fernando Mendoza, forget it. In free agency, we're going to talk about the top prize. It's not all that exciting for other teams on the outside. So Daniel Jones is the best option in front of them. And the reason Jonathan Taylor also does well is because Jones is mobile and he can move around and can execute the offense. And you have to worry about his legs as well. And this offensive line is pretty good. And if they can execute in the downfield passing game, that also opens the running lanes up for Jonathan Taylor. And overall, they're going to move the ball and score. And that's always good for Jonathan Taylor. So I think this is good. Let's hope that now that his Achilles recovery is on time here. That would be helpful. And then we can feel good about these guys again, especially if Pierce is out the window.
Yeah, it's pretty bad when the top quarterbacks to get this year, Fernando Mendoza, like it's not like he's a home run prospect, right? He's going to be a risky prospect, but he's the best in the class. So he's going to go number one. It very much looks like, but then in free agency, it's Malik Willis. And then the top trade option is Mac Jones, right? It's like, there's not really good options out there, especially when you're hearing all these reports like this team wants Malik Willis and all of this. But right now, the big news coming out of Dolphins is that they're favoring signing Malik Willis as their quarterback. If they move on from Tua, it makes sense with Jeff Hafley coming from Green Bay and now the Dolphins head coach. But would this be a good fit for him? I mean, they're talking about maybe trading Jaylen Waddle. I know they shut that down, but we'll talk about those rumors in a second. Even with Jaylen Waddle, that offense is lacking weapons, right? And we've only got to see Malik Willis start 6 games. His last 2 games, fantastic. His last 2 starts, so good, especially for fantasy. I mean, monster games. First 4 games, though, I mean, he couldn't even throw for 125 yards. He was throwing multiple interceptions. Like, it just, besides the running game, it wasn't really there for him. He started 3 games with the Titans, 3 games with the Packers. I mean, I don't know that if it was just a system with Matt LaFleur that made Willis look better, or he really stepped up once he got more familiar in the NFL. But I don't think this would work in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, the one good thing he's only 26, so you can develop him a little bit. And he did come in a lot with a lot of promise from Liberty, but he did kind of slide a little bit on draft boards. Everyone thought he could be a first round pick, but he was buried well behind Kenny Pickett in that draft class. And Pickett's had some opportunities bouncing around, but he's been stuck as a backup. Well, I think Willis landed in a really good spot because you got to play extensively for Jordan Love in 2 seasons. So I like what I've seen from him, but he's really good in that system. And sometimes it comes down to that, how good you are in a particular system. Also, the Packers had a lot of support. They can run the ball. They had a good offensive line. The receivers are not elite, but he did get help. And then Willis was using his legs a little bit better. And I think Willis has just matured. I mean, he came in as a very raw prospect. The Titans probably jumped the gun in trying to get him in there. Then they messed with Will Levis, and now they're on Cam Moore. So they didn't quite know what they were doing at quarterback at that point. Well, the Packers, we know, are very good at developing quarterbacks. Now, if he leaves there, like, do you feel great about Miami? It does help that Jeff Hafley's there, but he's a defensive coordinator. They did go with Bobby Slowick, who was fired from the Texans a couple years ago as their offensive coordinator. So I think he could do well in the system. We know those are all related, 49ers and all that, with Slowick and LaFleur and all that. So there's a potential to succeed, but you didn't mention something that we're concerned about. Tyreek Hill is gone. Jaylen Waddle's on the trade block. So I think it could work in terms of facilitating the running game and Devin Achane and having Willis run and being respectable, right? If they're going to build up their defense and go that direction. And I think they're just so sick of Tua, Michelle, that even new people in there that didn't bench him and all that, I think they want to move on and have somebody they actually like and can rally around. I think that's the biggest problem with Tua. I don't think the team rallies around Tua. Where I think Malik Willis, you saw that, right? Showed some inspiration in Green Bay. So unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot of fantasy value here right now. And it would even be worse if he ends up in Cleveland, which is the other hot rumored team here to replace Shedeur Sanders. So Malik Willis, I'm sorry, he was really good as a fill-in, plug-and-play quarterback in Green Bay, but it's not going to be the same, and probably just a matchup-based streamer wherever he goes.
Yeah, and it would be unfortunate too for Devin Achane if that happens, because so much of Achane's fantasy production comes from those dump off passes from Tua. And with Malik Willis being a run heavy quarterback, we probably wouldn't see as many of those. I honestly think for Malik Willis to have the best chance to succeed, he should be looking for Arizona to be a spot if they move on from Kyler Murray. A lot better weapons there, and then Mike LaFleur, maybe he can ask his brother, how to utilize Malik Willis. But we've been talking about Jaylen Waddle. The Dolphins kind of shut down those trade rumors this week, but at the same time, to up his cost, they can't be like, yeah, we want to trade him away. But Mark Kaboli, that works with the Steelers, he went on the Pat McAfee show and said to keep an eye on Jaylen Waddle to the Steelers, and he believes that the team that they had a deal done for Waddle before the trade deadline, but kind of fell apart there in the 2025 season. I don't know, like for fantasy, I don't know. I get it. Like if it's Aaron Rodgers, he's the better quarterback than probably whatever Miami will have next year. But will Waddle get as many targets in Pittsburgh than he would have with the Dolphins being the top guy? But maybe with Mike McCarthy, right? It could be much more pass heavy. DK Metcalf doesn't have to be a heavily targeted guy. He could just be that deep guy that's a contested catch player that needs like 100 targets. So maybe it'd be nice for Waddle, but it all depends on the cost because Waddle can't stay healthy to save his life.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. And look, the Dolphins can say this all they want, but they've been fire sailing this for a while. I mean, Tyreek Hill's not the only person they moved on from. They also said goodbye to Bradley Chubb, who they made a big trade for with Denver. So they're trying to clear some of the big names and big contracts. So we'd expect them to be able to move. I'm not sure Jaylen Waddle in Pittsburgh is all that great. I mean, they've had a similar guy that didn't pan out in Calvin Austin the third. I mean, I know Waddle's
very different.
Waddle's had experience, but that doesn't excite me because he's such a short area receiver and doesn't have a lot of touchdown help. I think maybe like I'd rather see him in like Philadelphia, where if they move on from Dallas Goedert, I think they need a third guy in the middle, that extended handoff guy. And I think I'd rather have the Steelers go after Wanda Robinson, who's basically Jam Waddle, but in a younger, higher upside guy at this point. So let's see how it plays out. But I just don't. I'm not going to get excited for Waddle. I think at best, I'm looking at him as a wide receiver 3 wherever he goes. And even in Miami, I'm looking at there. So if he stays put or leaves, I can't go beyond that because, again, Waddle's a fading player to me just with the injuries. They're just added up. And he was an extended handoff guy early in his career, made some field stretching plays in the Tyreek Hill, Mike McDaniel era. He's somewhere in between and kind of very inconsistent at this point.
Yeah, he had some good games last year when he was needed, but it was all over the place. But so was the Dolphins offense. So maybe a new location would be great for his career and his fantasy value. So keep an eye on those rumors continuing to come out this week. We're going to talk about one piece of news each that we want to hear as we're sitting here in the NFL Combine, watching the Combine. But these are rumors about veterans that we want to hear come out. We'll discuss those to end today's show.
All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use our profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win the NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. With injuries and all that affecting so many teams, there definitely is a little bit more wide open. Now, not only can you pick cash, but it can also send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use the profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Michelle, time to close the show. And we know the combine, a lot of coach speak, everyone goes to the podium, GMs talk, they talk in front of everybody, they talk with a pack of reporters, they just talk and talk and talk and talk, and you don't get all that much information from these people. All right. That said, there's also things going on behind closed doors while people are watching prospects, talking about veterans on the move. What is the biggest trade rumor or news that you want coming out of the combine this week?
I want to hear everything and all things Brian Thomas Jr. I want to start heating up those trade rumors because clearly he doesn't mesh with Trevor Lawrence or in Liam Cohen's offense, right? Like in year one, he thrived with Mac Jones. It was up and down with Trevor Lawrence. And then the second year, he just, whatever Liam Cohen's offense was with Brian Thomas Jr. really having to take big hits over the middle, he didn't really want to do that, right? That wasn't something he wanted to do. He did not want to put his body on the line. He also was dealing with some core injuries that may have, limited him taking those risks and taking those big hits. But I think right now he still has a lot of good trade value for these Jaguars. And if he has another year like he did this last year, that trade value is going to go down tremendously because then he's 2 years removed from his monster rookie season. But people still have that rookie season in mind. You can still get a lot of good value. I think the Patriots would be a fantastic landing spot. Give Drake May that elite deep threat type of guy that can also handle a lot of targets. That would be wonderful. Maybe the Bills, maybe Vegas. They don't really have any wide receivers right now. The Commanders, I mean, outside of Terry McLaurin, have no one. Maybe you put together Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. with the Giants. That would be sick. But a lot of options out there. And just looking at in his career, his completion, his catch percentage with Mac Jones was at 68%. With Trevor Lawrence throughout his career, it's at 56%. It drops by 11% between those two guys. They just don't have the connection. Trade him now while you still can and still get a lot, and let someone else have him and let us have him for fantasy because we saw what he can do. I don't want that just to be taken away.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points, and BTJ could be on the move. There's a report that he may have peaked here in 2024, which is really sad if that's the case. That was his rookie season. It was spectacular, and that's okay because even if he gets close to that, we'll be happy in fantasy. But it appears like it can't happen again in Jacksonville in this current state. So then you look at where the connections. You mentioned Mac Jones. Mac Jones could be on the move in a trade. We'll see if that happens from the 49ers. If not, the 49ers need a wide receiver and maybe bring him in and figure out how to work him in with Jones and Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy, another guy, can stretch the field with a big arm. So I would not totally rule that out. And the other connection that he has, and this is maybe outside the box a little bit, the Jaguars' former guy, Press Taylor, is with the Bears. So maybe you get rid of DJ Moore, move him, then the Bears like, hey, we're going all in, right? They could say, we've got Colston Loveland, we got Roma Dinsey, Luther Burden. Let's go get us Brian Thomas Jr. for our quarterback while these guys are still on contracts and go for it here with what they're doing. So that's another destination to look at. But Bears, 49ers, there's a lot of teams. And all those teams you mentioned, Raiders, Bills, Patriots, Commanders, Giants, all these teams will be in the market for a wide receiver. And one guy that I would look at, of course, is A.J. Brown. Now, there was a report out of the combine. The Eagles are not guaranteed to have him on the roster in 2026. Look, nobody's guaranteed to be on any roster. I guess he could get hurt or something could happen. But what they're saying is they haven't shut the door on an A.J. Brown trade, which is interesting to me. Again, 49ers could be a system that he could do well in if he can mesh with the quarterback, but he does have the skill set to help Brock Purdy. The Saints, we know he's done well with Kellen Moore. That's the team that says, look, we got Tyler Shuck. We want to give him another weapon with Chris Olave. They're going to have to do a lot, finagle the cap, and cut some dudes to make it happen. But you could definitely see that as a possibility. So all kinds of things that would be in play here for A.J. Brown. Everyone will be after him in some form, right? If the price is right with the draft pick compensation, It'll be interesting. I don't know who's actually worth more. I think it's still A.J. Brown than Brian Thomas because
Yeah.
Thomas is coming off a down season. A.J. Brown is this guy that everyone says, oh, he can be a game changer. You get him in the offense, you can win a Super Bowl with him, right? So I really think he's going to be the first round pick. I think you might be able to get Brian Thomas for a second or third round pick, the way things are going right now. So if Thomas has a better chance to be moved because of that, but I'm going to watch A.J. Brown because then it would create a nice void here with Dallas Goedert in free agency. Devonta Smith, who do they bring in as that other receiver for the Sean Mannion offense? So we can see a revolving door of receiving action that happens, and these two would put it in motion. If somehow Thomas and Brown were moved, then it's going to get crazy out there because Mike Evans is now not guaranteed necessarily to return. Wan'Dale Robinson looks like he's going to find a new home. So this could be crazy in terms of trying to figure out where new wide receivers are. And that's even getting into the rookie class, which we will on the next show.
Yeah, and the rookie class seems to have a lot of talented options out there that we're going to have to figure out who's worthy of taking and risking, those draft picks as a rookie. But that will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in to Locked On Fantasy Football. We will be back on our next episode talking about all these top prospects to look for in the combine and what we're watching for. So make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Fantasy Football so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Fantasy Football ad-free every day, Monday through Friday. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to join the club. We'll talk to you later. Bye, y'all.